Hey guys, Luton here, and yes, I am still unwell. But now this might come as something as a surprise to you, and it did to me as well. But reading through a load of articles this morning, as I often do when I wake up, I found in my feed this one from PC Gamer talking about the next COD Black Ops installment. Now, vaguely just scanning through it, thinking whatever, curious about some of the changes they made, I suddenly found myself feeling interested. Now, I immediately felt nauseous, of course, but then I started to think, maybe it's time to give COD a try again. Now, I'm not advocating that you consider this yourself, of course, because that would be a disgrace, but I am curious at the least, and you guys can let me have a crack at it, and then the only person who's wasting their time is going to be me and not yourself. Still, why has this iteration of the next COD series caught my eye? Well, first up, I think I should say that I've always enjoyed fast games. It's true, I enjoy games like Arma and Postscriptum and Squad, where you spend a solid amount of time just sitting around or relaying information. But then I simultaneously enjoy games like Overwatch, Battlefield with chain link and domination, where the emphasis is on speed, close quarter battles and engagement. I always used to play as Fox and Pikachu in Smash Bros as well. So what is it that caught my attention here? Well, it's not the graphics for sure, because they still look kind of whatever, but the first thing that made my pupils dilate was the quote saying, "The days of 720 no-scoping your way through a match just might be gone." That's an eye-opener to be sure. It's only one person's opinion though, and I strongly doubt it's accurate, but just a vague concept that the days of this fuckwittery style of gameplay are disappearing from COD is enough to pique my interest. The article goes on to explain that COD is transitioning now to a more 5v5 team-based class shooter while maintaining the core COD elements of fast and nimble engagements. To a degree, it sounds like they're trying to skim the cream off various other games and somehow bring that all together. It also apparently is, but isn't, Overwatch, so borrowing traits and abilities without going full Overwatch still retains the style and the feeling of COD. Another thing that piqued my interest, no more auto heal. This is quite a shocker as well, no more automatic health regeneration in the game. Instead you've got stims which you can use to heal up but have to stop shooting etc in order to do so. The idea being that it brings more pace into the game. You might not be able to just jump into cover and then continue the fight. Instead now you might have to do a quick 180 dash into a side alley, heal up and then get back into things. It's a very small difference, but these mechanics are often enough to entirely change the pace and flow of gameplay, as well as benefiting players with the sense to know when and where to make an aggressive or more defensive play in micro-tactics. Your radar is also switched up, with the minimap now having a fog of war only illuminated for areas around yourself and others. It's these kind of tweaks that have me thinking, what the fuck? Are they actually trying to make this COD more tactical and more team orientated? Because it kind of sounds like it. But nothing really prepared me for this next quote. My favourite touch is the emphasis on total damage dealt and objective points rather than KD ratio in the score screen. Team contributions are given the highest respect in Black Ops 4. Holy fuck. I mean, did COD just beat Battlefield to improving teamwork? What is happening? If I had to take a guess as to what changes COD's going to bring this year, that wouldn't be anywhere near it. So what do I think's happening? I think Treyarch have probably come to the conclusion that looking around at other games, including stuff like Siege, which by the way continues to grow its audience and profits, as well as having a quite solid competitive scene, which we know is all important for companies these days, they see this and have maybe decided that they're finally at a balancing point where they need to rethink their strategy. It's going to be bound to happen eventually, but I can't lie, I'm surprised that it's come so soon. I thought COD was going to be literally ground down until it was hanging on by a thread before changes like this started to come into play. This game will apparently focus more on map awareness, which sounds a bit vague, and also of course teamplay. Again, it might want to focus on that, but I'll believe it when I see it. As with Overwatch and Siege, your team can only have one of each specialist character, and yes, this game has got that as well, so it invariably brings the whole issues of balancing and team composition into play. The weapons are just your standard fare by all accounts. Run down the list: snipers, SMGs, LMGs, shotguns, pistols, so on. Your characters can have abilities like various deployables or specialist perks, so a lot like Siege, and to me that gives a lot of interest depending on the game mode you're playing, especially for control points where you might have to defend and then switch to attack and so on. Kill streaks are still in there, which I think is probably one of the most disappointing things. I think if they really wanted to take a big step forward, that needs to go, because it seems to actually contradict these other changes that they're bringing in. It's like, yeah, we want you to focus on your overall team performance, but by the way, don't forget to rack up those kill streaks. That to me seems hugely counterproductive and really surprising, because if they've taken the trouble to put in all these other changes, they must have thought about that. The worst thing about these killstreak rewards is their impact on gameplay flow and pace. As soon as a killstreak reward arrives, even if it's passive or offensive, you usually have got to take some kind of emergency action to avoid it or counter it, which means any flow you had in your team's game plan will hit a brick wall at that point. So as I say, this sounds intriguing to me. If nothing else, I'm just curious about it from a perspective that they had the balls to make any kind of changes like this. And still, despite that initial quote about no scoping, I'm pretty unconvinced. That kind of bullshit is so heavily entrenched in the game at this point that unless they made mechanical changes to actively stop it, you know it's going to be there. And all of these interesting changes aside, it was never the primary reason that I didn't get enough COD either. And neither did I get COD for the single player. I know everybody always goes on about single player, which by the way is going to be totally absent from this game, which again is a bold move when you think how many people often said I was only getting the previous one to play the single player campaign. I mean, for me, I often found those single player campaigns to be very cheesy, very trite. It felt very bottlenecked, very linear, and I never found it to be particularly interesting at all. But the main reasons I lost interest in the game quite a while ago were maps that were just too big for the amount of players and you'd just be leave you running around. In general, their stubborn attitudes to not using dedicated servers. The last time I played a COD, I was being killed before I even saw an enemy round corners. I was pumping a whole magazine into a guy right in front of me, and then I just dropped dead without even seeing him or firing a shot. It was these kind of game-breaking things which made me, last time I felt good about trying a COD game, I tried it out, and within literally a day I just uninstalled it and didn't touch it again because of that kind of BS. It's like you can't release a game and have that kind of nonsense in there. You know, at this level, it was just ridiculous. So I'm not going to be expecting too much, but it's piqued my interest with those promises of changes. And maybe that's enough for now, maybe that's all we could hope for. The fact that any of these changes have come at all mean that it's trying to move forward. And I guess, what do you expect as well? Change is painful, you can't do too much all at once. I'm probably going to play this to check it out, just for my own curiosity, and mainly to see if they've actually killed off no scoping in the game. That would leave me with a nice warm glow inside. But the most interesting thing of all could be, we haven't heard, of course, what's going to happen with Battlefield this year, but I would just be amazed if it was Call of Duty this year who tried to make a step towards improving team play in these massive multiplayer FPS games and not Battlefield. Now, we haven't heard anything from Battlefield so far, but if that were to be the case, I feel like I'd just be like, I'm done. You know, it's just the vague concept that that could happen would just be spectacular. So we'll see what happens. Look, tell me your thoughts about this, as always, down below. Check out the content at the end of this video, guys, as well as the links down below as well. And thanks for watching. This is Luton.